Again, we're live and we got this weird head thing going. I apologize for that. But yeah, I'm your host Mike Pugh of the FPC Virtual Channel. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We're gonna nose dive right into the live session and see what we can get. We're getting some red signals on the actual audio. I apologize for yesterday's audio. It really wasn't that great. The audio was really bad. And like I said, I apologize for that. We had some lawnmowers in the background in my house area, and the lawnmowers were very loud, so I tried to turn it down and tune it down a little bit. And just a recap of what we did yesterday. If y'all folks missed that session, pretty much what I was doing, I was covering some animation tips, giving people little tips of things that I learned of the trade on Blender. And what we're seeing here is where I left off at. I pretty much kind of neglected to talk about how the animations are actually recorded, and I did not cover the topic of using an actual camera on Blender. But this was where I ended at, and this is what I was showing folks. So if y'all folks want to check out that previous session, just check out in my actual channel, just check my channel area and you'll see it's the latest video. And that should be the quickest way to get to it. Other than that, I was covering a good amount of information that could help y'all folks to get started with animation. When I first started on Blender, I'm still a novice to it. I'm still a newbie. I'm still learning. I'm still a student. But when I first started, I would say about 5-6 months ago, when I attempted to start animation, it was using this software known as MakeHuman. So I'm going to show y'all folks real quick. But what you saw here, let me go real quick, go back to it. What you see here, this is just a layout and using the sequencer, the video sequencer, to be able to lay out some of the images, to actually add images as a sequence, as an image sequence, and then I converted it into a video file format. So I showed all that in my previous session that I did yesterday. So like I said, just check out my channel. If y'all folks are not sure how to get to where I'm talking about, you go to YouTube, type in FPC Virtual, or you can click my actual profile and you'll get to it. So you go to my channel and I'll show you the video that I was talking about, the one with the lady, the animated lady's face or head, where she looks like she's either scared, screaming, yelling, I don't know. Something to that effect. That's the latest one. Blender 2.8.2, animation fun, mouth and head motion. So this video here is part 2. So what we're going to start off with is where I was able to get these characters created from. Because I don't actually model the characters myself from my own artistic style and skill. No, I don't do that. I actually use a software known as the MakeHuman Community software. So let me show y'all folks. Hopefully the computer doesn't freeze in this process, but my computer really does suck. I have an Asus gaming computer. It's an Asus GD11 or something like that, and it does have some glitches and issues that might be associated to my actual TV that I'm using and I'm connected to. More than likely, I'm going to try to purchase an Asus compatible monitor, and the monitor should be able to tell me whether or not if I'm having issues with that in terms of compatibility, because sometimes dealing with computers, if your computer and your monitor / TV aren't compatible, sometimes you're going to have system freezes and stuff like that. So I can't go 100% and say that it's the Asus machine that's causing the problem, or I can't go 100% and say that it's the actual Windows 10 software that's causing it. So I apologize for the nudity, but this is where we start off at, pretty much the actual MakeHuman Community software. In order to do different things that I'm able to do, this is where we start at. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw on a t-shirt and throw on some pants, and just so we can get rid of that nudity part. But basically, for those who are not familiar with this, I just wanted y'all folks to see where I start off at, so you could actually follow along and be able to do it yourself someday. Knowing that maybe 9 times out of 10 you don't have the artistic skills in a digital format as a computer graphic designer to use Blender to create an actual human from scratch. So if you don't have the skills to do it, you don't know how to do like 3D sculpting and then read topology, which is to create a 3D mesh on top of the pre-existing sculpted mesh and do all those kind of highly advanced fine-tuned stuff. If you don't know how to do that stuff, then you can use an automated generator tool. This is a tool that generates 3D humans, pretty much, known as MakeHuman. And while the previous version was known as MakeHuman, the newer version is known as the MakeHuman Community software. So you can really do some amazing stuff with it in terms of being able to turn characters into fully fledged rigged characters where you can actually act out and put your own actions into the character and your own creativity into the character to display to your viewers. You can do that stuff, but starting with this software is a base to start from. So what I was able to do over time is learn how to use the tooling, and the tooling evolved as I was learning how to use it, and it's gotten better and better and better. And now that we have more assets that are available, a lot of the assets that I get are from this community tab that they have here, and you can pretty much grab stuff from it as long as you're synchronized and connected to it. I have previous sessions and videos that talk about it. If I go through the whole process, it's going to take a long time, and we'll be here for hours, for more than 2 hours, because I want to break down and explain the head motion and the mouth motion and how I got to that point. So what we're going to do, we're going to bypass that, and we're going to assume that y'all folks watch some of those previous session videos that I talked about, that I've done, where you can learn how to get the software, get it on your computer, get the assets running, and also to be able to fully clothe the character how you see fit using those assets. And once you do all that, then you're going to move into what is known as the pose and animate phase. You also will get into materials area where you can add skin and stuff like that. And not all the assets are actually working fully functional the way they should, because it's still in a more of a alpha phase, beta phase. I believe it's a beta. This is the version MakeHuman Community 1.2.0 alpha. It's actually alpha, sorry about that. So alpha 3. So it's still in the alpha test experimental phase, and everything is not going to be fully functional when it's in an alpha or a beta phase. Just like Blender, right now the Blender 2.8.2 and Blender 2.8.1 are fully experimental, and they're not in their full release yet. But Blender 2.8.0 is in its full release. So there you go with that. There's different things that you're going to experience dealing with these differing software in terms of the experimental phases, beta, alpha phases, stuff like that. So there I just added some skin. I chose one of the skins that I chose to select from the assets that I have here available. You can go with different skin, and as you can see, this particular skin that says Summer Glow has an issue. It's not showing up. Some of them may show up after you actually move it to Blender, and some may not show up at all. So it depends on what you're choosing to use, or if you want to go with the actual defaulted material skin that's already defaulted on the software, you can use those kind of things. And all that stuff is important when it comes to you coming up with a final product that you want to come up with for your project. Say you wanted to create an anime show or a film, short film or something like that. You want to have really good detail, and you want it to look good, obviously, because then your viewers are going to question it and say, what is this? You know, like, you want your viewers to be happy pretty much. So you want to be able to provide them higher and higher quality on the visuals that you create. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm throwing in some eyelashes, eyebrows. Let me throw in a tongue, so when the mouth opens, it doesn't look like it has no tongue, you know, stuff like that. Throwing in some teeth, hopefully not bad teeth, but we're gonna throw in some hair maybe. Now, talking about the assets, depending on what type of assets you choose, some of them are conflicting with the version of Blender that you may choose to use. If you're using like the Blender 2.80, some of them work decent, and then some of them will crash the actual system, or some will actually not work at all in terms of the actual character being able to synchronize and to be uploaded onto Blender. So when I talk about synchronizing, that means that you don't necessarily have to export the actual model and upload it onto Blender. You can just click a single button on Blender, because this new software 1.2.0 Alpha 3 is fully equipped with synchronization, where you can automatically tie it into Blender. It has a really cool transport type of a more of a add-on that's tied into Blender, and when you click a certain button, it just automatically goes onto Blender. So I can show y'all folks that real quick. So let's go to File. We're going to go to New and go to General and hit Don't Save, because we don't care about what I just did over there. I already have it saved. So that was some text stuff. I was playing with text animations, and I should be launching some future videos, live streams about text animations on Blender, because you can use Blender kind of similar to Adobe After Effects when it comes to creating text. A lot of different things you can do with it. So I'll be trying to explore more on that and see what I'm capable of doing with my creativity. But besides that, once I'm ready, I'll be launching those. So here we go. We're on Blender. We start out with the cube. We can delete the cube if we want. I just hit the delete key on the keyboard. Now it's gone. The only other things that are left in the Blender viewport are the camera and the lamp. And I'm sure if you folks watched some previous session videos for Blender, that you should know by now what the lamp and the camera does. But that's what I neglected to talk about. The camera is what you're utilizing to create your renders. So whatever's in your view for the camera, whatever direction the camera's aiming at, is going to actually be rendered. So right now the camera's aiming at the 3D cursor. Now the 3D cursor is an invisible object. Same thing with the camera and the lamp. So no matter how many cameras you have in your scene and whatever you have in your scene, the only thing that's going to be viewable is your 3D object that I just deleted. So a good example would be, let me click this overlay button. So the overlay button allows you to hide stuff that isn't visible once you choose to render. So we're going to click that, and you see everything disappeared except for this indication that you're choosing to select the actual camera. So this is the kind of thing that you will have to realize once you start using Blender. There's different modes to use Blender as well. So when I talk about modes, you can switch around from object mode to edit mode to pose mode, or depending on what type of object you're selected. If you're selecting a bone, you'll be able to select, or bone/armature, you'll be able to select pose mode. If you select the actual mesh, the 3D object itself, and / the mesh of the 3D object, it will actually give you the options to select modes based on the mesh controls. So what we'll do, I'm gonna bring in that character just so y'all folks can see that part real quick, but I'm not gonna cover that because this is not an actual video about 3D mesh and stuff like that, but it's gonna somewhat talk about it. So what we're gonna do right now, I'm just playing around with this pop out menu you see here, but what we want to look for is the actual menu that gives all the add-ons. Now right now this is Blender 2.82, so I'm not going to be able to show y'all folks the add-ons at the moment because the add-ons are not visible. They're not showing up here, and that's probably because I have to go and activate them. So what I'll do is X this one out, don't save, and I'm going to go back to Blender 2.81. So I have them one by one. This is Blender 2.79b, Blender 2.8.0, this is Blender 2.8, and I'm talking about the bottom of my actual desktop computer, and then this is Blender 2.8.2. so I have one after the next in succession. So we're going to go to Blender 2.81 because the add-ons are activated on that one and in my previous versions that I have on my computer. So you can have multiple versions of Blender running on your computer at the same time if you wanted to. Whoever wants to do that, you better have a strong computer, because it 9 times out of 10 will freeze, especially if you choose to render multiple renders at the same time. I don't recommend anybody doing that, but yeah. So what we're doing, we're just trying to run up Blender 2.81. I'm gonna check off of my phone to see if I have any comments since we're doing this live, and make sure that my audio is down. I always have issues with the audio being a conflict when I'm communicating to people. So hold on one second. Let me just see while this is taking some time to run up. So here we go. We got 5 people watching. Thanks a lot for y'all folks who chose to watch. We got Science World. Thanks Science World for showing up. That's really, really awesome that you chose to watch and to see what's going to happen over here on my end of the FBC virtual community that we have out here. So what we got going, Blender 2.8 alpha is running up right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to try to use that add-on. So that's what I was looking at over here on the right. So you see all these little tabs. This particular version of Blender has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 add-ons that are tied in. In the previous versions of Blender, Blender 2.79b, and previous to that, the add-ons used to be on the left, and now the add-ons are on the right side of the screen. So when I say add-ons, these are actual software that are built into Blender through third-party actual developers, either built into Blender, or it could be a software that you can get from a external location on the web. So you got to go to like a GitHub location, and you have to actually download those add-ons onto your computer, and then you tie it into Blender through file exchange of the add-on section. So you go to edit, you go to preferences, and then you go to add-ons in the very dead center here. When you click on it, it gives you the access to tie in to the add-ons, and also gives you the add-ons that are already fully loaded onto Blender as part of Blender's assets and tooling capabilities. So you can go in and you can activate stuff like Rigify. I highly recommend for y'all folks to activate the Rigify add-on, which gives you the ability to, you know, create rigs and fully functional rigs for your whatever type of characters you chose to create, human, or it could be some type of animal or something like that. And they have other add-ons that are here. So that's how I got the add-on for MakeHuman. So the MakeHuman Community add-on, this is a plugin for it right here. If you don't have it activated, you won't be able to do what I'm able to do today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna minimize this, but I just wanted y'all folks to see that. I highly recommend for y'all to get the dynamic sky add-on. That really does make things look really awesome. It adds background, a sky background to your setting, and you can really have fun with that as well. And that's what I did in a previous session. I don't know if it was a live, I think it was a pre-recorded session. I did some animations with some skeleton type designs, 3D models, and I played around with the skeleton. Y'all folks can check out some animations that I did with that in the most recent videos that I did, some short skits. So and those characters came from MakeHuman. So here we go. Here goes the MakeHuman tab for the add-on, for the community add-on. You just click it with the left click mouse button, and then all you got to do, it starts out with the mesh option. You also have a mocap option, which I tried to play with. I actually made a purchase of an actual Connect 2, the device itself from Xbox, and it should be able to work to record your motion, your actual physical body motion, and then be able to re-display that motion into moving your actual bones for an armature that can control the 3D model. But I haven't been able to accomplish that. It just didn't work, or maybe I don't know how to work it. So that I'm gonna bypass. I'm not gonna really talk too much about that, but that's for motion of the body, not for the actual face. It would be nice to be able to have a Facerig set up here for your motion capture through the Connect 2, where you can actually control the face. Maybe that's gonna come in the future for MakeHuman, you never know. Settings area here, this part is really important when you wanna set up the size for the character. So how the character size comes in, you can go to Blender unit equals, and then you can go down and go to decimeter or centimeter. I like to go to decimeter and bring into the size effect of what type of sizing I want my character to actually be built as. So you'll see the character stands tall at a certain size. It might be really tiny or really large, or maybe in the middle. So that's why I like decimeter, because it comes out in the middle and I don't really have to scale it too much to the degree of what I have my viewport set at with my cameras and my lights. So that is one of the parts that you want to do and set up before you actually add the character. And then another thing over here, they have some new stuff that they added. This is the actual new add-on, the most latest add-on to the MakeHuman Community add-on for Blender, and it has this extras enhanced skin material and enhanced skin SSS, which I did not cover yet on any videos. I will be covering it soon. I did plan to do it and then my computer froze, so I wasn't able to launch that video, but I'll be covering that, and it's really cool. You can go to the MakeHuman the YouTube channel for MakeHuman, for the MakeHuman community, and be able to get to that, and you can check it out and get the download and all that stuff. But I'm gonna launch future videos about it, and my first video about it's gonna cover how to get it on your computer, how to get the add-on to work, and etc., whatever you need to know. So I'm gonna try to cover those things. So let's launch the actual character in. So as long as your character is set to launch, like sitting here in the screen, and you have this socket thing set up, you have to go to the socket from the community tab on MakeHuman from the version 1.2.0 alpha 3. Make sure the socket's connected, make sure that all that's set up. But with this most recent version, it's all automated and it should be set up already for you. You don't have to click anything on it with the newer version that they released. So now what we're going to do is hit the import human, and it's going to automatically import the human in with all the materials and everything. So if something fails in the import process, it's probably 9 times out of 10 because that particular material has an issue, or maybe it could be a hair material asset. So some of the hair assets are messed up. So what you want to do is just revert back to default hair and check those to troubleshoot, and that's what I tend to do. Like this particular hair, Adaline or whatever, Atlantaline or whatever, I'm not sure the name of it. It doesn't even work. See, I clicked it and selected it, and the hair doesn't even come out. See that? But if I go to Bob01, look at the hair now. See, the hair now goes on. But that's a feminine hair on a masculine character. I want to put a masculine hair on a masculine character, obviously, because I wanted to mirror what I wanted to look like. So you can do whatever you want to do. That's up to you. So there you go with that. Say I wanted this hair to show up, and let me show you how the character will look by just changing the shading options here on Blender. So hold on one second. Let me drag down and zoom in so you can see, and you'll notice it looks a little bumpy, a little weird looking. I can show you how to fix that, but that's because of the new add-on. So let me go into the, what is this called? The materials properties area. So this is one of the controls for your properties, and this controls everything in your viewport to the object that you choose to select, or maybe the armature you choose to select. It depends on what you select here. You can select the light. If you select the light, it will change the options in your material properties options, and actually the material properties will go away because the light doesn't have material properties. So what will show up is object data properties. So you can go in and you can adjust that as long as you select that tab, and then you can adjust the light how you see fit. So you can make it stronger, weaker, things like that. As you can see, the light just dimmed out, and now the light is going up in strength. Those are the kind of things you can do with Blender, which is pretty dope. But all you got to do is not be intimidated by this stuff and try to play around with it. So all right, so we're going to go to the material properties, and we're going to go to this pour scale option here and pour details area. We're going to click that and put a 0 there instead of it being at 25,000. Let me zoom in first so you can see. Actually, well, it happened automatically because I put the 0 in and I moved away and clicked it. So it applied the 0, but I wanted y'all folks to see. Let me go back to 25,000, how it's set at default, and I don't know why the developers set it to default at that scale, but that's really what they set it at. And what it does is it just applies pores onto the skin surface, and how it's working pretty much is applying a graphic. This is a graphic bump map or something like that, and the mapping, you should do some research and dig into it to understand how mapping works for textures, but basically it's graphics that are used as image files, and they applied and overlaid on top of the 3D mesh. So it uses UV maps and stuff like that. UV is like horizontal and vertical XY coordinate plane systems, and using it to convert into a 3D plane. So they use maps to digitally map over the contours of vertices that an actual 3D is shaped upon, and then all of that will be converted into graphics, so you get to see where the graphics is showing on the screen. So we're gonna hit a 0, hit enter, and now you can see that it improves the texture. So now the texture looks much more smoother. That's the kind of stuff that you have to do some research and digging and learning from multiple videos on YouTube. That's what I did, but also going to Google and type in things like bump map, height map, diffuse map. These are the kind of information that you're going to need to know as a newbie starting out. Like I said, I'm still a newbie, so I don't know all the background to it, but I'm more familiar with it by playing around with it over time. So let me fix the eyebrows real quick. I like to do this stuff so that folks can see there's ways to fix stuff if you run into issues. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go into the settings area below all of these options for the texture nodes and stuff like that. These are the nodes controls, and this is some of the value sliders for differing things like metallic, specular, roughness, things like that. So it adjusts the contours of those maps and differing scales of things. So what I'm going to do is go to the blend mode and then change it to alpha blend, and that will make the eyebrows look normal, like a normal human's eyebrows, kinda. And the same thing with the eyelashes. I'll do the same thing here, alpha blend, and now it looks like regular eyelashes. See that? So once you get all that done and you set up, now you should be able to play around with creating the face rig and stuff like that, or manipulating the face rig. But I just wanted y'all folks to see that you can get your character adjusted and do it really easy. I didn't do too much. I went for MakeHuman, threw in some texture over the skin. I threw in hair. I didn't add the hair actually to that upload, or that synchronization I should say, because it's not really an upload. And I just added 2 different assets for the clothing by clicking a few clicks. I didn't even adjust the character's shape, contours, design. I didn't do much else. Just wanted y'all folks to see that it's very simple to do all these things just at the click of buttons. So once you get it onto Blender, now you see what you want to get out of it. So you can see how it's starting to look much more decent, much more detailed, exactly what you want type of thing. So you start to work the shapes in and the contours as you see fit. So say I wanted to add the bones, we're going to go to pose, animate on the MakeHuman Community area. Right now it has no bones. So if you go back to Blender, you won't have any bones right now. So you can't control the animation per se of the facial structures or the actual arms, legs, torso, neck, etc. You can't control any of it. All you can do is maybe make it move back and forth, but it's going to look like an actual, like a very stiff, like a statue pretty much, or a mannequin. So it's not going to have any functional motion. So in order to apply the functional motion part, you have to rig it. So the rigging part on MakeHuman is the pose/animate tab. So you click it, and you're going to notice that it starts out preset at none. So that's why it has no bones. So what you got to do is choose to select what type you want. Now you have different types of rigs here. You got the CMMB. CMMB will give you a basic rig, but it does not give you the full face rig. So as you can see, you have a head bone, you have a neck bone, or a few spine bones, but you don't have the rest of the rig. So you can't really go that far with it if you want to rig the full body, including the mouth and face motion. So all you'll end up using this for 9 times out of 10 is like motion capture of the body. So let's go to default. And with the default one, it gives you the full face rig. So I chose to select default. I'm no longer on CMU-MB. So now you can see the full capabilities of what this is going to do. So what this does, this gives you digital bones. You don't have to know how to rig. You don't have to know anything in regards to 3D modeling or design or anything. You pretty much, all you'll need to know is, I need to find these bones on Blender and make them move. So how do you make them move? You use your mouse. You click on the bones on Blender. You click on them and make them move after you get your actual mode switched to pose mode. So I'm going to show y'all folks how to do that real quick. but this is basically the rig setup for the Facerig. Let's go to the other one. So this is another one. It's a default no toes, so basically it's the same default rig, but you move it up and you'll notice it has no toes. So this is for people who want to create a character that doesn't have functional toe motion, and some characters are like that, and it reduces the bone count depending on the software that you choose to use. Some software requires you to have less bones than more bones, so getting rid of toes may work in that favor. If you're doing like game setup, you want to add your character with a full face rig to a game actual software where you want to be able to rig the character into a game so it has the fully function of all the bones and stuff, but maybe you don't need the toes. So maybe the character has boots on, something like that, some nice shoes or whatever, and it's not using sandals, and it doesn't have to have realistic feet motion. So that's that part. We got game engine. Game engine doesn't have a full face rig, etc., etc. So everything else under it doesn't have a full face rig. Only the default and default no toes. So I recommend for you to use the default because that works the best with Blender's add-on. So we're gonna go switch over to Blender. Keep in mind that I did choose the default bone structure for the armature / bones / rig. All of that is all the same thing. Rig means that it has full-fledged bones built into the 3D model so that the model can be animated. Because without a rig, you won't be able to animate your character to the full capacity that you can. You could, like I said, you'll move it like a mannequin or like a statue, and it will just either fall and break if you give it full body physics and make it like some kind of a stone statue or something. Make it breakable. 9 times out of 10, if you drop it from a gravity point, it will just shatter on the ground. That's all it could do. So let's go to normally you would have to go to File over here and Import, and go to maybe FBX to import it, or go to the MHX2 import option, which it doesn't have an import on this version of Blender, but in the older versions of Blender you'll see MHX2 as long as you have the add-on for MHX2. MHX2 is the MakeHuman Exchange, which allows you to tie in your bones into your character through an import option. But we don't need to do that right now. We're just going to play with it the same way I just showed y'all folks how to synchronize the character in by clicking through this tab here that says Import Human. So importing without having to go to File, pretty much. So what we're going to do, we're going to scrap all of this. So we're going to go to File, go to New, and start over again from scratch. So go to General, don't save. I do that because I want y'all folks to see how it would be done if you first started out. So here we go. We're going to go to well, let me switch the tab because right now it's on MHX2 because I was showing y'all folks. We're going to go to MakeHuman tab and then go to Import Human. But before that, like I said, go back to the settings, check the sizing so you get the right size that you want. And if you don't want to deal with that texture thing, you can shut that off by unchecking Enhanced Skin Material, and that will get rid of that textured thing if you have this particular add-on. So how I got this add-on, I had to go over to the Facebook page for MakeHuman, and then I found the video, the actual latest video that showcased this, and then in the video description area I found the actual add-on link, and I went to it, and then I downloaded the add-on and got it working on Blender. But before that, I had a previous version which didn't give you these options. It didn't have the same options. So the mocap was in the back, it didn't have settings, and a lot of the settings was in the mesh area here in the previous version of this actual add-on. So what we're going to do now, just hit import, and you'll see, hopefully it doesn't have any problems, but you'll see the bone structure come in, and also with the hair. So now we're going to go and switch over to differentiating options that you see. We're going to go and switch over to the rendered option. Hopefully the computer doesn't freeze, and you'll get to see that we have a background sky, which I threw in. I did not throw in a ground plane or anything like that, but what I'm noticing is it's missing some stuff. So right now we're having texture issues, and I could fix that. What that is probably is because of the hair. because I added that hair. I don't know if it's the hair or maybe it's the bones causing some sort of compatibility issues, but obviously there's a glitch and we're not getting the textures to show up the way that it's supposed to show up. So what we're gonna do, first I'm gonna hide the bones. So I click on the bones, make sure they highlight, and hit the H key on my keyboard so I can fix the skin without the bones being in the way. So I'm gonna go in, tap on the actual mesh for the bone, for the flesh by clicking on the face. If I click off of it, you see it's not highlighted. Now I'm gonna click anywhere on the face or the head. Now it's highlighted, as you can see. So what I'm gonna do now is go into the material data for the material properties area of the actual mesh. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna check to see what's going on. So generally I troubleshoot all this stuff in this area. Let's go from alpha hashed to opeg. Make sure that's set at opeg. Shouldn't have the skin at alpha hashed, so that was a little error there that they made. I don't know if the developers did that by mistake or whatever. So we're gonna go and move this up. Now with Blender, it gives you options to control multiple parts and portions of the screen. So you have these modules that you can pull up, and you can actually bring up more modules. You can send modules away. This is the timeline one. This is the actual the node editor, aka the shader node editor. So what you can do is you can zoom in. Here goes some nodes here, and don't be intimidated by nodes. Basically, they're just ways for you to manipulate the material properties of an image. So they are adjusting the properties of images, background areas, things like that. It's not really that complicated, but it can get kind of complex the more nodes you add. So right here, this is known as the principal shader node, or let's see what it's called. Let's go to add. We'll go to shader. It's called the principal BSDF. How I know that is because of playing around with it for a while since Blender 2.8 came up. This wasn't around in the previous versions of Blender, but basically it's a really easier way. They tied in a bunch of nodes together into it so that you don't have to go through making a whole mess of nodes all across the screen. So it makes it easier for you to control a single texture. So right now, this is the principal BSDF. Let me click off of it so I can move them. This is the material output. So as long as you have a material output and you have the principal BSDF, you should be able to have something showing. Right now it's just showing a white texture. If I change the color, it's going to show other texture. So I notice the problem here is that I don't have an image showing up to control the base color. So there's no image file. So it's absent of the image file, and I don't know how that happened, because the previous version that I had set up, it came through. In this version of the import for the MakeHuman asset, it didn't come through. So the only thing I changed was the hair and the bones, as you can see, as y'all folks saw. Hopefully you just came in, or you recently came in from the beginning and you've been watching. We got Dave Donnie. I am getting problems with Rigify. Oh yeah, man, I haven't tested Rigify lately, but I'm gonna try it out and I'm gonna see what happens with Rigify. I apologize for not commenting on that part. That was about 20 minutes ago or so. But yeah, Rigify can have issues. All kinds of issues can show up. It depends on the version of Blender that you're choosing to use. But I didn't have any problems with Blender 2.79b in the past with Rigify, and I haven't really tried it too much in Blender 2.82, but I did a rig testing it one day actually with Rigify, and it worked out pretty well. So it depends on how you start with Rigify and how you set things up. I believe you cannot go into scale. Don't scale it if you're in object mode. Scale it in edit mode. If you scale it first in edit mode and then you pop back to object mode, in terms of resizing your Rigify armature to match the actual scale of your character, like I said, don't do it in object mode, do it in edit mode. You should be fine, because then when you go down, say you're in the rig itself and you go down, you have to be in the bone structure and you try to generate the rig, and you click that generate button that's usually down in the bottom around here. on the armature side of it, then it will generate the proper size. Now if you break anywhere in the process of reshaping and contouring the armature to match your character, if you break the face rig for any reason, any node point connection to the face rig, it's gonna ruin the actual armature that you're generating. So you just have to be careful how you do all of that stuff. I learned a lot of it. I'll show more videos about it in the future, definitely in live streams if I can survive without the computer freezing. But let's get back over here, which I was troubleshooting the texture. So we're gonna go to add, go to shader, and actually not shader, we're gonna go to texture, and we're gonna add an image texture. That's what's missing over here. We're gonna connect the color to base color, and we're gonna look for an actual texture that can go in. I'm not gonna apply the texture that I had from MakeHuman because actually I didn't export the texture, so I won't be able to get the exact texture. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna steal the texture from another texture that I have on my computer. So we'll just to bypass all the stuff I'm gonna have to go through to get that. So I'm gonna go to one of my characters asset areas and then try to get texture. So let's see if I could find it. Textures, here we go. Nope, can't find it on this one. So I'll go into another character. There we go. Middle-aged, dark-skinned female. Let's go with that, whatever. And open. And now it's throwing in a middle-aged, dark-skinned female texture for the face. So that's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to do for each of your textures, because for some reason something went wrong. This is for the eyebrows. I can do that for that. For the eyes. Hold on one second. Let me just bring in the eyes just to show y'all folks. Texture, image texture, open, and I went to Sky Ox textures and blue eyes. Let's throw in some blue eyes. Color. I like blue eyes for some reason. Now that's not going to show up exactly. You would have to do specific node connections to get it to show up really, really good and to display the way it's supposed to show. And that is something that I'm not that great at in terms of the eyes. So maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it's all good. You can still play around and you can manipulate it. The reason why it's not showing is because of an alpha that is not showing, and it takes me time to figure out how to get these eyes to work all the time. It just takes a long time for me to figure it out. So I wouldn't want to do it in a live session. I would most definitely do it in a pre-recorded session if I was to show y'all folks how to do all that. So let's go to image texture. We're going to do eyebrows. What I also can do is I can steal from the other character that I loaded the first time. So what I would do, let me go back to MakeHuman, get rid of the bones, and then go in and get rid of the hair. I don't know if the hair is causing a problem. So let's go to none. Let's change the eyes actually. Gotta go to materials, go to eyes, and then let's change it to light blue. Let's see what that does. And we're gonna import this character in. We'll import it at a different size so I can move the character. Actually, no, we'll import it the same size and I'll just move it. I think I can move it. So we're gonna import, and we're gonna use the move feature to move it over. And now what we'll do is click on the eyes here. Oh shoot, and guess what? It has the same material problems. 9 times out of 10, that's because it's going to mimic what this character has here. So we're going to go to File, go to New. This is the troubleshooting I have to do in order to get things to work using MakeHuman and Blender. So let's go to Import. Sorry, not Import. MakeHuman, Import Human now. And now it should come out fully outfitted with textures and everything. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to change the size. So now the character is so small. See, that's why you want to change the size, because you might not even know where the character is at. So I forgot to do that. Let's go to undo. Let's go to settings. Take the enhanced skin material off. And change it to decimeter, go back, mesh, import, boom. Alright, so now we're in. Let's go to render. And now we got everything working. See, the eyes are working, everything's working. Pretty good. So once you've done that, now you should be able to get the other character to work. So now we're gonna go the other character setup, I should say. So we're gonna go and throw the afro in there and throw in the bones. So default, and now we'll import again. Okay folks, I'm back, and I do apologize. I really seriously apologize, man. My computer stinks. So I don't have anything up and running right now. I just wanted to mention, if I do have any more fails on my computer, I am going to end the session for sure. We have someone who has a request. I'm True Skills requested, can you make me a task master model? And I never heard of that before, so I don't know if I can create anything that is well known or anything like that, because like I said, I'm still a student at this thing. I'm not a 3D modeler expert or anything to that degree. He said it's a comic book character. I would actually rather not create something that is owned by someone else, because I don't want to have any issues with copyright and things like that, and I think you don't want to have any of those issues, trade issues, or whatever the case may be. But I don't know. That character sounds interesting. Maybe in the future I can create something similar to it for people. I'm not sure. But for now, I'm limited in what I could do because this computer is really not good. But I'm trying my best to come up with some short animated films and things like that, and it's very, very difficult to do with a computer that doesn't work well. So and most definitely with YouTube, as you can see, I don't upload that often because of it, and that's one of the major issues that I have. And that's why I've been doing live streams, to try to get videos out as fast as possible, and in hopes that I can actually puzzle something together to make a video that's worthwhile to watch. But live streams are really killing my computer, and other things are killing my computer. Even pre-recorded sessions don't work that well. So it's unfortunate, but the only solution to it is to get a new computer. So until then, I'm gonna be stuck with this crap. We got B Lifting. Welcome back. What up, B Lifting? How you doing? Thanks a lot for showing up. To you and I'm True Skills, as well as whoever else chose to show up. We got Dave Donnie and Science World that showed up, and whoever else chose to comment / show up. The reason why I'm not showing anything else on the screen, because I'm afraid that it's gonna freeze. As soon as I got Blender on recently, and the last time I rebooted, it froze, and then I also had MakeHuman running. So I'll give it a try again, but if it does fail, like I said, I do apologize. I'm gonna try to come back tomorrow with a part 3. Maybe I can finish this little small mini series about the mouth motion and head motion of the character. As you can see, this is a character I did on MakeHuman. I learned how to do high detail customizations with MakeHuman, which you can do, but sometimes it comes out a little weird looking, and that's what this character was. So I wanted to put it up as a screen, kind of like background for my PC. So a screensaver or whatever. I'm not sure if that's what it's called. Let me throw on MakeHuman, try to bring it up. If it freezes, I'll see y'all folks tomorrow. If it doesn't, I should be able to continue with this session. So I'm gonna go and play it by ear as these software start popping up, and we'll see what my computer can stand up with or not, or whatever. And I can show y'all folks some of the issues I've had when you run something, or even if nothing's running. My disk is at around 100%, the total utilization across all physical drives, and then some of this does go up and fluctuate a little bit, but if the CPU goes to 100%, it's going to freeze. Usually that's what happens. Maybe because I just loaded Python onto my computer, Maybe that's the reason why it's freezing much more frequently, but I'm not sure, because as you can see, Python just popped up with percentage running. I guess it's running in the background. Maybe I want to shut it off. You can go in and you can do different things to shut it off, but as you can see, Python is running because I got MakeHuman running in the background as well as the foreground. So let me try to get this character outfitted from the nude character that it starts out with, and throw the outfit that I had on before. And just to try to catch up to what I had set up, I did do that in my previous reboot, but like I said, it froze and I wasn't able to even throw on the live stream session. So at least I can do this, and hopefully I can get close to where I was at, where I left off at before I was rudely interrupted. And what in the world just happened? I gave it a pose. My bad. I didn't want it to give it a pose. I wanted to give it a skeleton with the default skeleton that I talked about. We got the Facerig here set up for it, and it's minimized, and now we're going to attempt to throw on Blender. So I got that set up the way I want. Actually, I'm going to leave out the hair because I have a hunch that the hair is giving me a glitch. We're going to leave the bones, and we're going to change the eyes, the eye color back to blue. Like I said, I like the blue eye color for the characters. Light green works as well, like you see here in this one. The brown one doesn't really look that real, so that's why I don't like the brown one. I'm going to go to Blender 2.80. It's a much stabler version, and hopefully it doesn't freeze my system. So these are the kind of things that you're going to go through if you're trying to get into graphic design and trying to use high-powered software for 3D, because your graphics card has to be very, very powerful, and your CPU to withstand all of the intense data that's being transferred to and fro or back and forth. And most definitely when you're trying to render, if you're trying to render animations, your computer really is going to struggle. But you just have to be fully equipped and ready to handle the load that's going to happen on your computer when you choose to run these software and programs. So Blender 2.8 most definitely requires you to have a stronger GPU, and you also have to have an OpenGL. I think it's 3.3 or greater. I'm not sure. I'm not really that familiar with OpenGL, as it's a hard software to actually troubleshoot or get into and to even understand to some degree, because a lot of it is behind the scenes. The developers work that stuff out, and it's responsible for your graphics being able to output, I think, on the web as well as on some of the software that's on your computer. So I don't even know much about it. I don't even know if what I just said is correct, but that's what I assume. But you can look it up on Google and all that stuff and try to figure out your compatibility and how it will work out with Blender. But on blender.org you can find that information for compatibility and try to figure out why your computer is or isn't compatible and what type of computer you want to upgrade to get that compatibility to work. So that way you don't suffer what I'm going through. But my computer should be compatible. It's just not working the way it should. So we're going to go in and try to put that MakeHuman tab back on, import the human that we got, and this time we're just importing the bones as is. And look at that, all of the textures came in. I guess it was the hair. That's my guess, that's my hunch, but the textures came in this time, and hopefully we can play around and manipulate the bones like I was talking about, so y'all folks can see the head motions and play around with the mouth and stuff like that. So that's why I tried to create this live stream starting out, so y'all folks can get to that point of getting your character outfitted, placed into Blender. If you got all the add-ons, you got all that stuff done already, you should be able to get to this point that you see here. And if you did not do all of that stuff of setting it up, I'll try to link in the video's description area everything that I've been able to do up to this point in separate videos, and try to build like more like a listing of videos so y'all folks can follow that to get to this point. But in this actual video I did everything from scratch, so it should be able to help you at least to understand it to some degree of what you're capable of doing, very similar to what I can do. And also you should be able to follow those other video sessions that I talked about that shows how to get the add-ons, how to get the software on your PC, and once you get it all together, how to work them together in unison so you can actually make it work to this point that you see what I'm able to do. So we're going to go to this object mode tab up here, or option, and as you can see, it has multiple modes. It has edit mode, scope mode, vertex paint, weight paint, and texture paint. All that other stuff is more advanced, and you shouldn't have to do that stuff to do what I'm about to do here. So why did it show up like that? Well, right now we're selected on everything, I believe. If you left click select outside of the character, outside the bones, it's gonna unhighlight itself. So we'll left click and you see it's not highlighted anymore. When it's defaulted, when it's imported, sometimes it imports defaulted at pose mode, or it may import defaulted as you just saw. But in order to get it to pose mode, you have to select the bones individually. So one way to do it, you can rotate and just select the eye bones here if you wanted it like that, because sometimes when it's connected to the mesh, it will select the mesh instead of the bones, and then you have to double click it. So now you see the bones are highlighted. What are bones? To just reiterate what they are, these are digital, more of a digital representation of a human bone structure. So how they make it work, they are utilized to control the actual the shape and contours of the vertices. So they're tied to the vertices of your digital 3D asset. And how they're doing that, they rigged it, they auto rigged it using MakeHuman software. So MakeHuman software auto rigged it. As soon as I went over here and I chose to go from none to default, it rigs it that fast. So it's already rigged. That means that the bones are weighted down with the materials tied to it, so they're parented to each other. And parenting in terms of rigging is basically saying that they're attached. So now the bones, if I move any of the bones when I'm in pose mode, and you'll see I'm about to switch to pose mode, it will move the associated parts that are weighted down to the bones. So the digital assets of vertices as well as textures will move together in unison. So let's go to pose mode, switch from object mode to pose mode. As you can see, it's only 3 modes now. It doesn't have all those other modes. Those other modes are actually the way that you would manually weight down the bones using texture paint, weight paint, stuff like that. So now we're in pose mode, and now we have to select individual bone segments, or it would actually be known as armature controls. You can have armature controls that will be more advanced bones that stick outside of the internal bones, and they'll be outside here, and you can control them or use them as controls to control internal bones. And sometimes the internal bones are hidden. So Blender has many different levels to it, and many different ways of layering bones and structure, as well as textures. You can layer stuff and you can put them in hierarchies, and you can hide them so it's easier for you to see or easier for you to control. So that's the kind of stuff that I had to do research on. It took me about 6 months to understand a lot of it, but really you'll understand maybe in the first week or so. But then in order for you to start to create the bones yourself and to make them work in conjunction with other things, with controlling flesh and all of that stuff that you see as vertices and vertex groups and all that, it takes a lot of time to figure it out. So some people, they're faster than others. Some people are slower with the learning process. It depends on your pace that you have and the amount of time that you have and what you're able to absorb based on your background, because a lot of the information is somewhat technical, and it could be based on what you know before you got to the point of learning it. So right now what I'm doing, I'm selected on more like the jawbone. As you can see up here in the upper left corner, it says human and it says jaw. So you can actually annotate when you create bones. You can annotate what they're named as, and you can go into controls over here in the properties area, and you can name it through the properties area. You can control it through the properties area, You can do different things with it. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna use the rotate option and these tools over here. They didn't really do too much. I selected it. Now I'm gonna go to rotate, and I can rotate it. But at the moment, the actual gizmo that controls the motion of different things, if you choose to select over here, the gizmo is hidden. So I have to select here with the left click mouse button to bring it out. So now it's not hidden, and now I can control the motion. And I did forget to put teeth and tongue, but I'm not worried about that because my computer, like I said, is gonna freeze every now and then. So I am happy that I can actually do this so y'all folks can see what is possible to do. So this is how I create my mouth motion sometimes, so I can act like I'm talking and animate it like that. Boom, 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 talk like that. But for the animation side, that's where you want to be somewhat knowledgeable of how to use pose mode and how to use the controls of each individual bone. Because when you go into animating, now you can learn how to play with the features of the animating timeline, as well as they have other animatable tools like animation nodes. They have the graph editor. They have drivers. They have the non-linear animation more like modules. These are different modules for animation. They have the dope sheet. You can play with all those things, learn how to do those things through watching YouTube videos, but pretty much the timeline is the easiest one to play with. So a good example, I showed in my previous session about the timeline with from 1 to about 250 in the frames that you see. So these are like frames, and I'll do a brief review on it, but basically you have to create what is known as keyframes through your timeline, and the keyframes are basically storing motion data of the 3D graphic using bones or using objects or both. Whether the bones are controlling an object, which is like this, so this bone is controlling the mouth object and jaw object so it can move and create mouth motion. Whether it's doing that or it's just the 3D object itself moving without bones, you're going to get what you see as little tiny dots that display on the screen, and those dots are representative of keyframes. That means that it's storing a frame by frame motion, and it will store the motion from whatever timestamp that you see on the screen as well. So this 1 to whatever frame, these are actual timing as well. So it's like 1 second basically, 0 to 1 second, 0 to 10 seconds. Frames can be looked at as seconds if you think about it, but it's not stated here as seconds, and it's not stated here as time. It's actually frames. So from 1 to the 90th frame might actually be 90 seconds. I'm not sure if it actually is, but if you count it, you could probably count it out and it'd probably be like 90 seconds. So let's see, I hit the play button. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Nope, it's not 90 seconds. It's more like 9 seconds. So every 10 frames is probably like 1 second, I guess. I don't know. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, something like that. See, so if you understand time in relation to creating something like video, if you know how to read a time I guess, what do they call it? It's a video clip. If you understand how video clips work in editing videos, then you'll understand how to do this time segment, playhead segment of the more of the frames. So you can play with the frames that way. Locking into a certain frame, like right now I'm on the 179 frame, is this here, this indicator. So say like you want to go to 200 frame, you can set it here. You can move it, see, so you can lock in and go to like 500 frame. Sorry about that. And then at the bottom you can scroll in and then go to that location. See that? So I scrolled to 500, and then this is the start and end frame. So that means in terms of you trying to render, when you want to render a final product, you have to use the start and end frame here. So let's set the playhead to 1, and then we can zoom out as well using the scroll wheel, the mouse scroll wheel. I'm zooming out now by scrolling down. Scrolling up will zoom in. and it depends on how many frames you want. Look how many frames we can scroll out to. Look at that, 10,000, 70,000 frames. That's a lot of time right there. Now, I don't recommend folks to put too many frames. You want to just work on small segments of frames because it takes a lot of computing power to render out frames, most definitely in terms of animation. Now, if you're rendering out, let's go up to the render option here. Rendering out images takes a lot of time as well, but it depends on what type of render engine you're using. So we're currently using the Eevee render engine. We're not using Cycles. If you're in Cycles, Cycles is going to actually render all of the pixels slowly, as opposed to real-time rendering, which Eevee does. And Eevee will take the image and graphic and basically burst it out onto the screen really fast, so you don't really see the individual pixels being rendered. But if you go to Cycles, it's going to take a much longer time, even if you're doing just the image render. But when you go to animation, you'll see it's going to be sluggish and very slow. So I showed him in the previous session of this video an easier way and a much more a less load on your computer type of method. So basically what you do, you go down here and you change your settings here. Well, actually it's defaulted to PNG for your file format to actually output. This is your render output setting here, and you render output to any specific folder that you want to render to. Right now I'm rendering out to the animate folder. This is a subfolder of MakeHuman that I created. You have to create subfolders for your actual projects. So you got to go into your computer, go into your subfolders, and find whatever folder you want to create for it. For those who don't know how to do it, just go into a subfolder, right click, and go to new. After right clicking, you go to new, you go to folder, and you can start creating subfolders. And then you type in what the name is for that subfolder. That's basically how it would work with Windows. Most people don't know how to do that starting out with their Windows computer, Windows machine, but that's how you would create a subfolder and name it. I have tons of them, and that's because of all the 3D software practice and training I've been giving myself and watching tons of YouTube videos, and over time you build up an archive so you can have an organized structure and format and flow for your projects, for your video projects or 3D projects, whatever project you choose to create. You want to try to organize it. So mine's is segmented, and I have tons of them in my main folder known as 3D objects. So that's that. You also can create them on Blender itself. So if I wanted to create a subfolder here, or a subdirectory, whatever, in the animate one, or whichever folder that I'm on, this is 3D objects, main folder, subfolder, MakeHuman, subfolder, animate. So say I wanted to create another one, I'll go to this plus option that says create new directory in the upper left corner, and then just type in folder. I'm just going to call it folder. You can call it whatever you want. And hit enter, and now I have a new folder there. To prove it, you go, oops, I'm trying to run Firefox by mistake, and let's hope the computer doesn't freeze. Let me shut up Firefox as fast as possible. Alright, so Firefox is shut down, computer's still on, we're good. So 3D objects, that's the main folder. The subfolder is animate, right? No, it's MakeHuman. So I gotta go find MakeHuman and then go to animate. So like I said, all of these you create. The default main folder of 3D objects was actually created by my computer. So Windows 10 has a 3D objects folder. Most people's computers will have that, as these main folders are already defaulted, like the videos folder, pictures folder, music folder, etc., downloads folder. Oh, and when you do add-ons and stuff, most of your add-ons are going to go into your downloads folder, so you want to check in those. You can do different things. I'll show y'all folks in another video of how to find those if you can't find them for whatever reason when you get your add-ons from the web somewhere. So there you go with that. Some really good information, useful information that you really need to know when it comes to organizing and, you know, formatting stuff so that you get the right outputs and where you want to get it. So let's go back to Blender. I'm actually going to shut off MakeHuman because I don't need MakeHuman up while I'm doing this. it's taking up too much of my PC as well, so hopefully that frees up some space. So now let's back out, let's cancel this, and I just wanted y'all folks to see that part. I'm not going to render out anything, I just want y'all folks to see the animation that I can create. So what we're going to do here, I didn't explain about the auto keyframing, but you can create keyframes from automatically hitting this button. You hit the orange button and turn it blue. It gives you auto keyframes. So that means that, say I wanted to set a frame here. So say I chose to move the mouth down a slight bit like that. That will automatically create a keyframe. So every time I move my pose position, any bone structure motion will create a keyframe if you move it. So now say I wanted the neck to move about this much, it will create a keyframe. Now keep in mind, every time you select a different bone, if it has no keyframes in the timeline, it will actually show that there's no keyframes. So let me undo that so you can see there's no keyframes in this neck bone motion here. So I can move it around like that, swing it around side to side, and there's no motion in it. There's no frame yet. So if I wanted it to be right there starting out, that's my start frame keyframe. So say I wanted to go to about 100 or maybe 50 and swing it the other direction. Now it's going to show motion when I hit a playback. So we're going to rewind back to the 1 frame time frame and hit the play. And you'll see the motion swing. So that's the basics to animation right there. And now you can just imagine all the different things that you can do with it. So you can, while it's actually playing, you can manipulate. So because of automatic keyframing, it will actually store when you have the playhead moving. So we'll hit the play, and actually I can't do it at the same time. So what I'm going to do is use the space bar on my keyboard while I have this selected. So I'm going to use this right here to make it move up and down like that. So I'm using the left click mouse button and selecting the red actual bar. So the red rotation bar, I'm selecting that so it can move the head more in like a vertical direction up and down, and that's representative of the x-axis. So it's going to rotate upon the x-axis. This would be like the x-axis right here. You can also look on the ground plane, and that's the x-axis right there on the ground plane. So these are the kind of things you got to understand about 3D, but this is basic stuff like in high school, learning about XYZ and all of that. If you understand that, you can follow the gizmo here to figure out which coordinate plane you're looking at for in 3D. And then what did I just do? I just changed the shader mode by mistake, but it's okay. So we'll go to like the red axis. We're gonna left click with the left click mouse button, and you'll see those 2 arrows show up, and now I can move it up and down. But what I want to do is hit the play button to move the playhead at the same time, so I can record the timestamps of each keyframe. So watch this. Let's see if it works. Okay. And oh, it's not working. I had it working before. Hold on one second. Nope, it's not working. Alright, it partially worked, but you get what I mean. You can just move the head back and forth at different keyframes and do it that way as well. So here we go. Let's hit the play button, and you'll see that the head is moving up and down at the same time as it's swinging side to side. And say you wanted to rotate the head maybe like this way. This is not a good junction for the head to rotate, but you would have to figure out like what point you want the head to rotate, maybe like that. So I selected an upper bone for the upper head bone, and that's the actual head bone itself. And now I'm putting keyframes in different positions at different time points. So you can see the motion and how it affects the head. So you would have to play around and keep playing to see what is the best arrangement of keyframes and how you would make the keyframes work in order to get the best motion for that animation. So you would think to yourself like, all right, from 0 frame to 100 frame, I'm gonna put this, or that, and in that particular motion have the head swing up and down, or make the mouth display that it's actually moving at that point. You know, different things like that. You would have to do that and play around and keep playing around until you get the best display that you think would be viewable in terms of viewing pleasure or whatever. Now, another way to do it, you would have to use motion capture software, and this is more like the manual way to do it. I'm not great at it. I'm just learning some of the stuff and playing around with it. It will take a long time for me to simulate an actual voice and try to get the voice synced together and all that. I don't even know if I can do that. But you can also use what is known as the MHX2 exchange, which is here, and import it as part of the MHX2 exchange instead of using the MakeHuman Community add-on import option. If you do it through the MakeHuman exchange, it brings along advanced armature from MakeHuman, as well as what is known as shape keys. If you get shape keys on here, once you get shape keys onto Blender, you can do much higher level manipulations for the facial controls. So you can actually use different things that's tied in to the MHX2. As part of the plugin, it will bring up a module that you'll see here, and you'll have the options to control the face on a higher degree in terms of having it facial expressions and differing emotions that could show up that are much better than you having to physically move each individual bone for Facerig itself. Shape keys are more advanced to me than facial bones that will be 9 times out of 10 controlled by motion capture software. But using the facial structure for motion capture, if you wanted to do that, you would have to go into using more advanced software that will tie in, like animation nodes. Actually, animation nodes I believe tie into the shape keys, but that's just an example. Like, you can use external software that will tie into the facial bones here through like I don't know if it's node connections, but they will use like empties, these digital empties that could be used as controllers to control the bones. So an example of that would be like, let me move the 3D cursor somewhere so you can see a 3D empty. So this is the 3D cursor somewhere in 3D space near this is the left ear here, and we'll go to add, and I'll go to find an empty. This is an empty here. What an empty does is basically like a 3D asset that is more of a motion controller. You can use it as a motion controller, and it can control bones, it can control a 3D object as long as you tie it together and you parent it to it. So it's almost like digital bones, but it's an empty controller. So it doesn't have the physical representation is not the same as a bone, and it's not an actual rig. So that's why they call it an empty, I believe. So let's go in and put one in, and they look like this starting out, but you can change how they look, and you'll see a whole bunch of these little things showing up if you're using motion capture, and you can use this to control bone connections. So say I wanted to tie it to this bone. Let me go to switch over to object mode. So we have to change the control here. We're in select box. Let's go to select, and then select the actual bones of the character. Go to pose mode, and say I wanted to control, let's control the head. Let's do that. So this is the head bone. So you select the head bone, then you're gonna shift select the empty. Actually, no, that's not how you do it. I forgot. What you would do is go into adding constraints. So bone constraints. So you go to add bone constraint. Then you go like copy location for your transform. This is more advanced stuff for those who already know how to do like motion capture and all that. But I learned a little bit about it. So let's go to copy location, then you'll go to this little eyedropper. Actually, no, you go to target first. Let's target camera. And look at the camera's all the way over here, so it's gonna do some crazy stuff. So let's go to offset. Let's shut off XYZ actually and bring it back. Alright, so say the camera was tied to the 3D empty. We'll go, actually, no. Let's do it a different way. Let's just try to do it from the empty itself. Okay. So we got the empty now, and let's try to, let's go to object, move the empty around. No. Alright, let's go to pose mode. Forgot exactly how to make, oh, I have to make the empty move somehow. So let's try to move the empty from one point to the next point. So right now we got one motion there. Let's go over here and make it move maybe like here and see what it does. I don't know if that will work. And go all the way, hit the plus. And actually you can't tell if this would work like this because I already have motions applied. So actually, no, it won't work the way that I want it to work because I already have motions applied to it. So I wouldn't be able to see if it's controlling it that way. But generally the empties can control the bones. I just don't remember how to do it per se at this moment in time. But I do know that it utilizes camera control as well. So you can get the camera to control the empties, and how you do that, you would have to use, let's see, let's go over here to modeling, and let's go and try to change the, hold on 1 second. Actually, hold on. Oh, here, hit the plus. So you hit the plus. This is in Blender 2.8 and above Blender 2.8. You go to VFX and you go to motion tracking, and then you would have to tie in like a video of motion capture. So you'd have to like have 3D markers on your face and stuff like that if you're trying to move the face itself. And when you get those 3D markers to be outfitted and tracked, once you get all the tracking data, you would go and you would actually reconstruct it into the 3D viewport. There's an option somewhere over here. You would click it, and once you get all of that done, I'll show it in some future videos of how to do all that stuff. But I think I tried one video on it and it didn't really work that great. But once you get it all done, you'll start to see that you have control of the 3D empties that are mirroring what you done in your physical movement in real time. So whatever you did is not going to be in real time, but it's tracking what you did in real time onto whatever video recording device. This is actually to open up a video. So you open up the video of your motion tracked data, you put it here, you track it, use this tracking option here, and once you track it all and you get it moving the way it's supposed to move, all the tracking points, then you convert the tracking points into empties. The 3 empties will show up in here in your viewport. You can go back to your layout and you'll see the 3 empties here being controlled by your camera. And from that point, look at the camera all the way over here. This is crazy. The camera's not even supposed to be all the way up there or down there. Where's it at? I don't know. The camera's just everywhere. Should be somewhere over here. And let me rotate it. Hold on 1 second. So say the camera is, this camera is very small. I mean big. I'm not talking about small. Very big, by the way. Probably because the character is very small. Alright, so there goes your camera. Say it had a whole bunch of 3 empties that were on the screen. You'll get to see the movement of the empties based on the camera control. The camera's going to display it push it out. If you try to move the camera forward and back, you're going to notice the empties are moving, but not really that great. So some of that stuff is confusing once you get that set up. But getting the empties to be aligned to the actual face rig, some of that is not that straightforward, and it doesn't work that great unless you have depth sensing, like a depth sensing camera. 9 times out of 10, something very similar to a Kinect, like an Xbox Kinect, maybe something along the lines of iPhone X or something like that can give the depth sensing data. And that what it means by depth is basically giving the full depth of the face instead of it being a 2D flat surface where you have all these motion data dots in a 2D plane. It's going to be in a 3D plane. So each point of the face will be mapped out and tracked so that you can get each of these points and segments on the bone structure of the face rig to be lined up with those motion tracking data points. When you get them all lined up and you get them parented and tied together, or following, not really parented, it's actually following the physical / digital location of those depth sensing trackers. Once you get all that tied in, then you can control the actual face rig, and almost to an exact specification. So now you're controlling each of those points and moving these points with 3D empties. So that's that part. You'll be able to find that on YouTube. Just type in mocap, facial mocap Blender. You'll find tons of videos that have motion tracking and showing you all folks how to do it. I'm just giving you an overview. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just showing y'all folks stuff that I learned. And when you get to that point, your brain will basically like take a little quantum leap forward to realize what you actually can do with 3D and what you can actually come up with that's somewhat similar to what they've been doing all along in Hollywood and in blockbuster films and cartoons and stuff like that. Anything dealing with 3D, they use the same type of technology that Blender uses, but it's not something that's free. They pay a lot of money for that, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Some of them have $1 million projects where there's like 20 or more, maybe 50 people working on one project to create the full facial animations and everything else that goes with it, the background scenes. Tons of artists come in and infuse a whole lot of different things. So special effects that you see and the graphics is just enhanced to such a degree that it's mind-blowing to make you think that you can't ever catch up to it. And in terms of a single person creating what they can do in Hollywood, it's almost impossible when you think about it. But anything is possible. Anybody can actually achieve anything, So you have to dream, and you have to go far in your dreams, and then also put those dreams into action by learning. That's the whole thing. That's what I believe. If you don't learn stuff, you're not going to go that far with your dreams. I mean, you might be able to hit the lotto or something like that, but even that's limited because that's just money. That's not fulfilling a real time dream, which is to maybe build a legacy, to build something that the filmmakers have been doing it all this time. The big time, showmakers and showstoppers. Those people, they have fully fulfilled dreams. It's not just money. It's actually they have infused their creativity into things, and people live off of it. People actually survive and thrive off of the things that they created, and we enjoy the stuff that they're creating. Even today, maybe hundreds of years after they passed away, we still are benefiting from what they created. Money doesn't do that. It's not just money. It's their heart and their spirit is etched into it. And that's where the difference between, the average Joe and somebody who taken themselves to a much higher level. And that's what I think about day to day. When I come up with stuff, I think about those things and I say to myself, I'm still not there yet. And I want to be able to get to that level someday, my own creativity to be able to be poured into it. So for now, a lot of it is just how to, I pour some of my own knowledge into how to, in a way where I can actually help people benefit, truly benefit from it. Even though my computers don't work sometimes, and it crashes and fails and burns and does all these things that I don't want it to do, I still find a way to get my creativity into it and my knowledge into it. You know, I haven't fully etched my creativity as an artist, not yet, because I don't think I'm ready for it yet, but I'm getting closer and closer. So now hopefully that helps y'all folks on that side of things. I don't know, it's neither here nor there for some people. That's just what I think in my point of view, perspective as an artist, or not an official artist yet on the internet per se. But there you go with that. You can just dream up a storm with all this stuff and try to go further and further. Keep digging, keep trying to find answers, you know, and apply to what you can do with it. My next videos for the fun animation of mouth motion controls and all that, I'm gonna try and attempt to do more with rigging, and attempt more with using like the mocap stuff, and also with the limitation with my mocap is that, like I said, my computer freezes when I try to do a lot of it, so it's hard to display a lot of that stuff while I'm doing live sessions or pre-recorded sessions. So it's like something of a barrier, and for many years I wasn't even able to afford some of this stuff to be able to get to the point where I can afford a computer that could do it. So affordability is another thing that slows a lot of people down. Some people have creativity, but they can't afford the tools to get to the point where they can actually use it. That's why like a lot of people turn towards Blender, because Blender is free. It's free and open source. But then you get to a point where you want to go a little bit further and create a film. So you need motion capture software sometimes to be able to go further, to make the face look realistic in terms of it moving, you know, things like that. So if you're limited on that level, you know, just don't give up and keep going and keep going, keep pushing the limits and seeing how far you can go. That's what I recommend to those who are out there who are stuck like me at the moment. But this is temporary, you know. And I just recently had purchased a car, so I had to get another car because my car that I just got, the engine is bad. So now it set me back even further, and I can't even invest into a computer. You know what I'm saying? So life happens as well. So if life is happening, you're having kids, you're having family things, and things are up and down, it's very hard to survive on a level of that kind of exchange and still be able to thrive, or to you know, invest into things that can make things work better. So it may take longer time for you to get to the next level that you can actually reach. Mentally you probably can reach it, you know what I'm saying, but in a digital sense you're just not equipped yet. And that's how I feel I am at. But it's all good. I'm gonna spend this time learning more and more and more. I want to get more advanced at understanding things, and the more advanced you are with understanding, then application becomes easy, because it's like second nature. Then you start doing things that you never dreamed that you can do, you know, shaking your head up and down. Never dreamed you can do it in a digital sense. You know, things like that. And making a character walk and talk and all of that. I actually learned how to do walk cycles, but this video is not about walk cycles, but I actually learned how to create a walk cycle, which is my own official walk cycle, which is pretty cool. So when you get to do that type of stuff, you're going to be like, wow, I never imagined I can do that in a digital sense. Make an actual 3D object walk, talk, and fully animate it to the point where now you are the animator. That's what I'm trying to become using these automated software. But like I said, I have to also learn how to do it from scratch. So I'm gonna have to learn how to create a 3D model from scratch with no assistance in terms of auto generation. So if I can do that, now I can catch up to those guys and gals who have already done it. They took the leap of faith, and they stop using auto character generator software, and they do it from scratch, which might take them 2 weeks or a week or so to create an actual character from scratch, maybe from a 3D base mesh. So a base mesh would be like, good example, let's go out of here, go to object mode, and go to add, and go to mesh. So these are base meshes here, like the Suzanne monkey, just through the monkey head. Maybe you want to start with a Suzanne monkey head. I don't know. It depends on what you want to do. But I'm not using this Suzanne monkey head to start out with. Maybe I want to start out with a sphere. So let's see, go to mesh and then start out with a sphere. So let's find a sphere, UV sphere, I don't know. And maybe I want to turn this into an actual head. Or I can start out with a cube and turn the cube into a head. How would I do that? Well, I would have to go and take some courses and learn how to do it, because I don't know how to do it myself right now at this very moment. But actually, I do kind of know how to do it, because I've been taking a course learning it, but I didn't complete it. I didn't even finish starting the full intro to it, but I do understand what they're doing, because I can go in and I can see, by going to edit mode, I can see what was done here. If you can see what was done previously on a design, it gives you a great idea as to how it was created, and then you can mimic what they've done over time. So that's the kind of thing that interests me and intrigues me. So this is all of the 3D mesh that you see here. How they did it, they came up with an algorithm that actually creates the character model. So the algorithm is automation and control and design. So it's really amazing. It's autonomous. That's why I love to use these auto character generators, because then it bypasses all of the learning that you have to do and the physical moves and makes you have to make with your mouse and all that stuff. But these are actual vertex points. You can pull them, you can push them, and these vertex points actually are connected to make line segments and face segments. And when you get these face segments to line up, they become the 3D mesh. If you complete the full, it's more like a puzzle. You complete the puzzle of creating them on a screen, and they actually will fully fit an actual 3D object. And then you have to do all these other technical things to mate them together in terms of vertex groups and making them make sense to the computer, so the computer software can understand how to work them together in conjunction with bones, digital bones, and other assets that you choose to tie to it. So that's that kind of thing. If you start off from scratch with the base mesh, you can just break the base mesh down. So you go to like the 3D object, go to edit mode, and now this is the same structure, similar structure in terms of vertices as what you saw with the head there. So now you would be able to manipulate the contours and designs here using Blender software and its tools of editing. So you'd be able to maneuver things and make it reshape and restructure. You also can use the sculpting software here and try to sculpt the differing contours and designs. But with that, there it comes what is known as retopology. See what I'm doing here, I'm trying to sculpt a different shape and design. See that? So it's changing the contours and design of the 3D mesh to look different. That's the kind of stuff that you can do with Blender on the other side of things with the base meshes. See that? So it's not a full sphere no more. Now it looks like some other type of shape and contour. So that's very simple stuff, but in terms of the mentality that you need to have and the mindset, you have to understand what you're doing before you get into using the tools, or else it won't make sense to play with the tools. You won't know what you're doing. But you can go in and play with it as a person who's starting out with Blender, but you're not going to really get that far if you don't know what you're actually using. So that's why going into the tutorials and stuff like that, you start to learn and you can go a little bit further. I'm going to delete this one and delete this one. And I'm going to end this session at this point because I actually got to get prepared for work. But I just wanted y'all folks to, hopefully get the mindset as to what's going on behind the screen, why people choose to do these things, and how it can take you to the next levels in terms of, you being able to fully outfit your dreams using it. Because, hey, there's unlimited potential in what you can actually create and come up with. You can design things that people haven't seen before, or haven't worked with, or haven't thought of. And You don't even have to design things that people haven't thought of. You can design things that people are familiar with, and that will bring relevance to them. And you can do stuff like that, and it actually can draw in a lot of people. It can draw in a crowd if you do something really dope that they think looks really awesome. Because that's what it is. It's more like show and tell kind of thing. You know, you create something that looks really cool, and then people like it, and then they share it with other people, and then they look at you and say, wow, this person is really good at this and that. And that's one of the things that is the benefit of having the online world working, as opposed to you just doing it on the ground yourself with no audience and nobody to actually share it for you, nobody to see what you can come up with. Imagine if YouTube didn't exist. I wouldn't be doing this live stream. I wouldn't even be able to find all of these videos that help me to learn this stuff, and I wouldn't have found Blender in general, because if you type Blender somewhere, you're not going to really find the actual Blender software. You have to type specific things on like Google or Yahoo or Bing or something like that to find Blender per se. It took me some time to find it over the years, and once I found it, I didn't even know what I had. I didn't use it for like 5 years after I had it on my computer. So that gives you an example of the fact that it just takes a certain mentality and a certain drive to actually do something with it. And once you get to that point where you can drive it, now it's kind of like a car. Like a car is an awesome tool, but if you don't know how to drive it, then you just become a passenger. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things that I think about as well. I don't want to just be a passenger of the software. I want to be a driver. I want to be an orchestrator. I want to become a designer. I want to become an illustrator. I want to become, you know, whatever wildest dream I have in my mind with it, because why not? It's free. I can do as much as I want with it, you know? And it's to each one's own. Take it to whatever extent you want to take it to within the confines of the law, obviously, because you don't want to break laws using this software and end up getting confined into a space or losing money. You know what I mean? Instead, you want to create something that's awesome with what you have, and then share that with other people, and it's going to benefit them in a large scale, on a larger scale than what they've received already. Maybe they're receiving something that's cool, but it's not as cool as what you can come up with, you know? And that's all I got with this. Joe Love and Peace to all. Mike Pugh signing up. Hopefully y'all folks are willing to tune in next time, even though these live streams freeze and all that stuff. I have technical difficulties. I'll see y'all folks next time. Let's see if we got much messages to answer. We got this message is held for review. Let's show the message. I need a model for my videos. Oh, okay. So I showed the message. That was I'm True Skills. I'll see y'all folks next time. I gotta go to work, and hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Smash that bell icon if y'all folks want to watch my latest videos that I can come up with in live sessions or pre-recorded sessions. And subscribe if y'all folks are here for the first time, if you want to get in tune with what I can come up with in the future. And that's all I got. Catch you next time. Oh, the very next session, I'll try to come up with much more play on this mouth motion thing and try to come up with an actual sync. I'll try to sync my voice to the character and see if that could work, so I can play the character out. And maybe, like I said, use some sort of a motion capture, or maybe animation nodes. If I can tie animation nodes through an iPhone X, which I already done it before. I just simulated and tried it to see if it works through my cousin's iPhone X, but I have to obviously make a purchase of an iPhone X to really make that fully realized and make it work. And that's all I got. I'm gonna switch over to my mobile. Hold on one second and try to end this session, because I have it on my mobile and I'm gonna end it from my mobile.